I've got full confidence in Zach. We all do. It's not like he hasn't had bad games before, and he stepped up and has followed it with good days. So, with the way he preps and the way he practices, I mean, the guy's 4-1 coming back as a starter. He does have a lot to do with that, avoiding all the sacks, being able to throw away the ball, keeping us on track, keeping us on schedule. There's a lot of things that don't blow up the stat page, but from a coaching standpoint, there's a lot of things that he's done to keep us at least from imploding.
Let's welcome in NFL insider Josina Anderson to talk about this game, Bills and Jets going down Sunday afternoon. Look, so we heard Robert Saleh there defending Zach Wilson, but I really love recently the guy he's facing off against on Sunday, Josh Allen, said, look, it took me a while to get going, and all of you were saying bad things about me, and look what happened there. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. But when it comes to Zach Wilson, how much patience are the Jets really going to have with him?
Well, first of all, this is just a huge, huge game. I know we've got Titans at the Chiefs, and we've got what else? The Seahawks at the Cardinals. I feel like this is the game of the week, and I feel like even just being here in this area, everyone can feel the magnitude of that. That being said, I feel like Zach Wilson also knows the magnitude of that. And then even just before answering that real quick, and you just go back to the fact that this Jets team was 5-2. No one thought that prior to going into this Pats game, but the fact that he had that 3 interception game really just kind of took a little bit of the air out of the balloon slightly for this matchup, but also what it illuminated just in the conversations that I've had about this matchup, and to get towards answering your question, is how much they do feel like the mental collapses, particularly in that 3 interception performance with Zach Wilson, had to do with the outcome of that game, 2 or 3 of those interceptions being on third downs, and how they feel like coming into this game, he really needs to slow his mental processes down and value those possessions more. That being said, we already know coming into the game against the Patriots that Mike White was elevated to backup quarterback. And going into this game now against the Bills, to answer your question, they have said that Mike White will come in if Zach Wilson gets hurt. So the question becomes, is that really the case? My understanding is it's not just if if Zach Wilson gets hurt, but really Zach Wilson in this game cannot allow the water to come into the ship. The boat cannot capsize. He cannot have a Nathan Peterman, speaking of Bills quarterbacks, as you were saying, what Josh Allen was saying about the time that it has taken him to acclimate. He cannot have a Nathan Peterman 2017 Week 11 5 interception first half type of performance, or you will see Mike White come in there. So Zach Wilson knows, per the performance that he had against the Patriots, that everything needs to slow down on value possessions, and he needs to take care of the ball regardless of whether there's an injury situation or not. That is my understanding. Obviously, there's an impact to the fact that he lost Breece Hall. You're talking about a guy that averaged 5.8 yards per carry. I mean, that is just crazy. The Jets tried to fix that by bringing in James Robinson, but when you're looking at the game against the Patriots, Robinson only had 17 yards rushing. Michael Carter had 26. So I feel like one of the things that will help Zach Wilson for this game, the Jets really need to just pick and go with a running back and allow that running back to catch rhythm. And I feel like they need to find a little bit more on what they have in Robinson to perhaps allow that to occur and to take the pressure off of Zach Wilson. And it's not as if Robinson can't do that. He had 100 yards rushing week 3 against the Chargers. We've seen him do that when he can get into that 15 carry zone or more. So I really think that that's crucial for Zach Wilson. But that is my understanding, that it is a little bit beyond just Zach Wilson getting hurt. He really needs to keep this as mistake-free football as much as possible, so it doesn't get into the epic collapse type mode as it was nearing against the Patriots last week.
All eyes on Zach Wilson this week, and one of the best matchups, though, we're going to see in this game, and one of the best matchups we're going to see all weekend, Stefon Diggs going up against Sauce Gardner here. Diggs tied for first in receiving touchdowns in the league. On the other side, he got Sauce favored to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Look, rookies, before the season begins, they can talk a lot of smack. He said, I'm going to have no problems going up against Diggs. What are you hearing from each team on what we can expect about these two facing off against one another?
Well, first of all, before we get into Sauce Gardner, Stefon Diggs is just absolutely in his bag. I mean, the absolute right decision, in my opinion, for him to no longer be with the Minnesota Vikings and to find the chemistry that he has with Josh Allen. He has 5 games over 100 yards receiving. The last game, and going and having all that joint back and forth, I was at that game where they were playing the Packers. For him to get 108 receiving yards on Jair Alexander, he has no fear of anybody. That being said, the rookie for the Jets is doing his thing, starting all the games as a rookie, despite the fact that even when I was up there at training camp, you could see, and also the head coach said that they were doing their best to kind of keep Sauce Gardner humble and to kind of slowly acclimate him and to maybe realize the magnitude of the complexities of the offenses and the matchups that he would have. But he's been really showing his own. When you look back at it, in the 323 snaps that Sauce Gardner has had, he's only allowed 44% of the catches against them, 147 receiving yards total, and the most receiving yards that he's allowed against himself in a game is 51 against the Bengals. And curiously enough, the least amount of receiving yards that Stephon Diggs has had is 62 receiving yards. So it'll be interesting to see in this matchup if Sauce Gardner can not only make him do worse than 62 receiving yards, which is what the Baltimore Ravens kept him as, but if he can also prevent him from having his 6th 100+ yard receiving game. So very interested in seeing that, especially after coming off being the rookie of the week, putting the cheese on his head against it, all of that stuff that he's done, if any of that is going to be lowering the roof, as Michael Jordan once said.
Look, and these two guys are not these are cocky guys, but you love to see it play out on the field. I don't know, maybe he's going to go smashing through a folding table if the Jets, in fact, get the win. We're just going to have to find out. Can't wait to watch that. Really quickly, Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White, he's been out dealing with ACL injury. They activated him. What's the latest on him?
Well, Sean McDermott recently said that, yes, you're right. They recently activated him, I believe, October 13th, during that 21-day window, but he remains day-to-day. They haven't really said if he is going to play and let alone start. We would love to see Tre'Davious White be back on the field, but I think really is the interesting thing is how they've been able to maintain the potency of this defense without him. This is the defense that finished number 1 after he tore his ACL 2021 week 12 of last year, still doing it without him. The third-year cornerback, Dane Jackson, stepping up regardless of the fact that Tre'Davious went down. And even going into that game against the Packers, they were number 1 in total defense, number 1 in scoring defense. They ranked number 1 against the run. But then when they had a little bit of the weakness showing as far as how Aaron Jones was able to get 143 rushing against them and A.J. Dillon 54 in that game, a little bit of the weakness exposed with the run defense and obviously as far as somewhat against with the pass. But as Leslie Frazier continues to say with this defense, and they maintain their ranking as the number 1 scoring defense, even going up in this game against the Jets, it's not necessarily about the fact that they have allowed some of those rushing yards that they wouldn't like to see. It's the fact that they're still not allowing the scoring right now, just allowing 14 points per game. So I think that that's really interesting. But even beyond that, just to kind of put this into context, without Tre'Davious White, even before that, at the beginning of the season, weeks 1 through week 3, they were starting Dane Jackson and they were starting Christian Benford. That was a 6th rounder out of Villanova from this year, the rookie, and they were still maintaining that number 1 ranking. And then Christian Benford fractured his hand week 3, and they brought up the actual 1st rounder, Kaiir Elam, who is now, starting with Dane Jackson and still holding the ground. And this is why I feel like they have the runway to not have to wait so long, to not have to rush Tre'Davious White to come back, because these rookies have been holding it down opposite Dane Jackson. So the question is, do they have that same confidence against the Jets? We'll see if it ends up being the right decision, whatever they do. But I know as an insider, that's what I'm going to be looking at. Is Tre'Davious White going to end up traveling? And even if he does, would he start, or would they just kind of acclimate him and get him in some plays right there? But lastly, really quickly against Tre'Davious White, for the last 3 weeks, they felt like potentially it was going to be this week. It was this week. It was this week. And it's been the medical staff who consistently said they feel like he needs to, stand back. And I felt like they had the confidence because of the 2 players that I've said and how they've been playing. But we'll see if finally, he will get in this week at all, let alone start.
Josina Anderson, a wealth of information. As you said at the top, this is a huge game in the AFC East. It is perhaps the biggest game, in your opinion, going down in the NFL in Week 9. We appreciate it. Taking a look at some of the games you can catch this weekend on CBS, including the game we were just talking about. Bills, a double-digit point favorite at the Jets this weekend. Kickoff at 1 Eastern on CBS.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.